What's up, everybody? My name is Ronnie DiMaggio, Product Specialist here at BMW of Morristown. In today's video, we're going to be doing an in-depth tour of BMW's new operating system, iDrive 8. So you guys probably saw we did a couple videos on the i4 as well as the iX. The iX is the car that we're sitting in now. And those are the two cars that debuted iDrive 8 for BMW. And in those videos, we mentioned that we would get around to doing an in-depth tour of the new operating system. So that is this video. This one's going to be a little bit more technical. We're going to go over every single little button in iDrive 8, every little control, every little menu. So we're going to be going really in depth. So if that's something that you're interested in, then you're in luck. If not, there's still some stuff to learn for everybody as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to talk about this big center screen. That's iDrive 8. That includes the gauge cluster. So let's start there. Alright, so here we are looking at the gauge cluster in the 2022 iDrive 8 equipped BMW iX. So the gauge cluster is just one part of this curved display that iDrive 8 is utilizing. The gauge cluster is not a touchscreen, but it is of course configurable with some buttons on the steering wheel. And it is 12.3 inches, whereas the center display screen, which we'll go over shortly, is 14.9 inches. So just like in iDrive 7 equipped vehicles, the gauge cluster is configurable much more so in iDrive 8 equipped vehicles. So let's go over that configuration. If you take a look very slightly down, you'll see this little button on the steering wheel right here. That's the button that you press to adjust what is being configured in the gauge cluster. So you'll see when we press that button, this little menu down here in the bottom right pops up. So we have three options to scroll through. We have content, layout, and head up. So from the left to right, content is going to adjust what we're seeing in the middle of the screen. So the default is reduced, BMW calls it. This is just a digital speedometer. Scroll down one for our trip data. So there we have our total odometer reading on this car, and then our odometer reading since the last time we reset our individual trip computer. And if we go up one more here, we see the electric vehicle equivalent of live fuel economy, so that's the kilowatt hours we're using per hour rather than miles per gallon. If we were accelerating or something, that would go up and we'd be using more energy as we drove. If we pull up this menu again, we can go down to our range predictions. So this is telling us what our range is, 261 miles, and then these two numbers, 155 and then 330, are showing us the potential ranges that we could get depending on how much energy we use. So if we go out and run this car around Lime Rock Park, we would get about 155 miles if we were racing it around a track. And if we were super efficient in our efficient drive mode, going slowly, not using much climate control, we could get all the way up to 330 miles of range. But 261 is about what the car would expect based on normal driving. We can go down one more to our assisted view. So this is going to show us different things depending on what we're doing. Right now, since we're parked and there's cars around us, it's showing us a map of our parking sensors, but if we were on the highway using our radar cruise, it would be showing us a map of the vehicles around us, the distance between us and the vehicle in front of us. So the assisted view is related to your assisted driving. It'll show you different things depending on what you're doing. We can go down one to route preview. So since we don't have anything input into our navigation as a destination, it's just going to show us a compass. But if we did have a navigation destination input, it would be showing us our next turns, how many miles those turns are, how many feet ahead those turns are, stuff like that. Go down to map. This is super straightforward, just showing us a live map of where we are. And then finally we have media radio. So this is just showing us the album art, the name of the song, the artist, and then the time left in the song right down there. So that's content. We can also go over to layout and adjust the actual layout of the screen. So this is the most kind of condensed layout. We have our speedometer and our power meter over on the right. If we scroll down one, we can have basically the same thing, just a little bit wider, more spread out. And then we can go down to this one. This is our most kind of sleek look, just the speedometer over here on the left, and whatever content it is that we want shown over there on the right. And then if we want to look up a little bit, if we can go to the heads-up display, which you can see there. So you can configure what's shown in your heads-up display. So that right there you're seeing the standard view, just my speedometer. And then while we're in this view, once the adjustment screen goes away, we can actually have our radio and stuff show up. So we can adjust our source, scroll through songs in our heads-up display. If we want to go back down to preview, we can also get the same thing like a route preview in our heads-up display. And then we can also see a reduced view, which will just be a slightly smaller heads-up display. So those are your customizations for the gauge cluster as well as the heads-up display. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of iDrive 8, the center screen. Alright, so the center screen in iDrive 8, this is what is most new for iDrive 8. Of course, the entire operating system is new, but this is going to be what people, I'm sure, are most curious about, coming from an iDrive 7 equipped vehicle. Maybe you're just a curious car enthusiast and you want to know what's going on in BMW world. This center screen is a really important addition to the new BMW lineup. So let's go ahead and go through everything. Like I said, we're going to be touching on every little menu, every little button. I want to give you guys the experience of actually being in here playing with this yourself. So we'll start by talking a little bit about the iDrive controller. It is very similar to the one in iDrive 7 equipped vehicles with some slight modifications. So you still have your home button, your media button, telephone, which replaces communications but does the same thing. You have a nav button and then a back button, and of course your iDrive scroller wheel. It is just the same as the iDrive 7 equipped car, so you go left, right, up, down, and then of course you can scroll around as well as press to select. So we'll start right where we are. This is our home screen, so it is of course configurable, so you can hold down on a tile and then move it around to wherever you want. You can also press one of these X's. Let's say I didn't want my personal assistant to be on my home screen. I just press that X and it goes away. I can hit the back button to jump back to my normal view. We have these different tiles that can extend as far as you want. If I wanted to add widgets, I could, and I could make it a little bit longer. These are the only widgets that we're missing. So we have an analog clock. This, I don't even know how to describe that type of clock, but it is a clock. And then you have the personal assistant. So those are the only three that we don't have loaded into our home screen, but you can go through all these things and add or subtract whatever it is you want. So from left to right, we have our navigation. This is of course just a map. We can tap on this, it'll jump us to our nav screen, which we'll go over in a little bit. We have our media, so right now it's playing music from my phone. If we tapped on that, it'll just jump to the playlist, and then I can scroll through different audio sources. Again, more detail coming on that soon. Telephone, if we tap on this, it'll jump to our phone menu. You can see contacts, stuff like that, go through recent calls. If we go over to weather, this is of course weather data. So right now we're in Morristown, shows us our current weather, and if we click on it, we can change the location, look through different days, stuff like that. Traffic conditions is of course going to be giving me traffic information. And then finally, my BMW is the equivalent of like vehicle status in iDrive 7, so you have that on your home screen as well. So let's go through over here on the left. We'll start by going through all these different menus. So menu is kind of a combination of car and apps from iDrive 7. Those have kind of been condensed into one thing. So when you click on menu, you have two options pop up over here on the left. You have all apps, which is every single function in the car pretty much. And then if you go to vehicle apps, these are your things specific to this actual vehicle. So your seat comfort, your system settings, mobile devices, stuff like that. Whereas all apps includes things like Spotify, Sirius XM, stuff of that nature. So let's go through all these little apps. So, and I know that sounds daunting, but they're all mostly pretty quick to go through. So let's start up here with BMW ID. This is where you can go to change, add, or delete BMW ID. If we go back, we can go to mobile devices. So this is accessible through the menu, or we can just click on media and then go to audio source, mobile devices right here. So a couple different ways to get there. Also in the mobile devices menu, you'll see we have something called personal eSIM. So a neat feature with the iX is that it has the personal eSIM. So what that is the car has the equivalent of a SIM card built into it, an eSIM, and you can actually add your iX to your mobile phone plan and get mobile service in your car. So your car becomes a connected device in your life, which helps with internet access most importantly, but some other connected benefits as well. And then if we go over to mobile devices on the right, we can connect a new device or adjust our mobile device settings, the name of the Bluetooth, stuff like that, turn it on and off. Down here we see a couple of different options. So these are allowing me to select how I want my phone connected. So right now I'm connected to telephone as well as audio. This is an indication for Apple CarPlay. If I clicked that, we would jump into Apple CarPlay. Personal Assistant is the personal assistant that we've known for a while in BMWs. This menu allows you to adjust different settings regarding your personal assistant. It'll give you some tips on how to use it. You can set up a wake word, things like that. You can also jump into your owner's manual if you had more detailed questions about the personal assistant. We'll go back to our menu here. Android Auto is, of course, Android Auto. If we had an Android vehicle or an Android phone in the car, we could connect to Android Auto through here. Apple CarPlay, same thing. FM radio, if we wanted to click this, it's just going to jump us over to our FM radio. Same thing with Sirius XM and presets. So all these three, FM, Sirius, and presets, will just jump us kind of like a shortcut to our media menu. We go back here and go through Spotify. If you wanted to link your car to your Spotify account, you can do that there. Telephone is the same as pressing this telephone button down here. We can go through here and look through contacts, recent calls, stuff like that. Navigation, of course, jumps us to our navigation. My Modes, if we click on this, it allows us to switch our drive modes. So you can either do this by pressing the My Modes button in the center console, or you can click on My Modes via the menu. Personal is like your comfort mode, sport is of course sport mode, and then efficient is Eco Pro, or the most efficient mode. So out of these three, sport is configurable. So if we put it in sport mode, we can now go to My Modes and then settings. And you can adjust the drivetrain, the suspension dynamics, the steering, whether you want the seat bolsters to tighten up when you go into sport mode. But for now, we can just leave it in comfort mode. Charging allows you to access all your different charging settings. So the charging mode is how do you want the car to interact with the charger. When you put the charger in, do you want it to charge immediately, or do you want it to not charge until a designated time slot that you set up? AC limit is going to allow you to adjust the AC current that the car draws from your power supply. You do want to make sure that you're using a power supply that is capable of the AC limit that you select. Charging target allows you to adjust to what level the car is going to charge. So right now we're at 100%, but if you wanted to adjust it down, let's say you only want the car to charge to 60%, you could do that. Some people like to try to protect their battery as well as possible by not fully charging, so you could set it to something like 70. I generally recommend just let it charge to 100%, you'll be fine. You can also adjust whether you want the charging cable to unlock at the end of charging automatically, leave it always unlocked. You can have it unlock the charging socket cover permanently, so your charging cover is never locked if you want to do that. And finally, we have the fan loudness. So when the car charges, the fans for the batteries do activate sometimes to keep everything cool. If you don't want those to be so loud, you can restrict them. You can leave them unrestricted, or you can just let the car decide what's best for itself. So those are all of our charging settings. Click back, we can go through weather. This just jumps us over to our weather screen. So we have our current weather report. We can also go over here to change location, add a favorite location, add our destination in our navigation. We can have it read out weather to us. We can also add Morristown to our favorites if we wanted to. Next, we have news and podcasts. So if we clicked on this, just like those FM, AM sources, FM and Sirius that we talked about up here, news and podcasts just jumps us to the different news sources that we could listen to. We could scroll through these just like it would be, just like how we could scroll through FM radio stations. We can scroll through different news sources. Seat comfort allows us to access our seat menu. So I can move the seat by the screen right here if I wanted to. I do obviously have hard seat controls over on the door, but if I wanted to, say, adjust my bolsters in and out, I can do that. I can extend or raise or lower my bottom support, stuff like that. So you can make seat adjustments in the seat menu right here, or obviously on the door. You also have some options over here, so we can set our memory seats through the screen. Again, that is redundant with a hard button on the door. This car does have a kind of pseudo massage feature. It just uses the lumbar support. It doesn't quite have the full massaging seats, but you can get that sensation emulated using the lumbar support. You can have the seat set automatically when you get in the car, and then you have some more seat operating tips if you wanted. You can also access this same menu for the front passenger as well. And then you can also jump to your seat climate control if we wanted ventilated and heated seats as well. So as I'm sure you guys are noticing, a lot of this stuff is in the menu section is redundant with other controls. So Pretty much everything I just went through in seat comfort I could either access through the hard buttons on the door or by pressing climate menu down here. But BMW likes to have multiple ways to access the same thing just because it allows for preferences between different drivers. Some drivers might like to get through things another different way than others. Just gives you options, which is great. Live vehicle is kind of like our vehicle status in iDrive 7. So if we go over to content, we can adjust what we're seeing so we can actually see our vehicle status. This is just showing us that tire pressure is good, no required services, no check engine lights or check control messages or anything like that. We can also show our trip data. So this is all of our driving information. We have the length of the trip, how many miles on the trip, how many kilowatt hours we used. We can also go in here and check that data since factory, since the last time we charged, or since the start of this specific trip, or we can reset our individual trip like we just did. One more thing, you do have the option for adaptive content here. So in this menu, in adaptive mode, the car will show you the trip content or the vehicle status, depending on which it thinks is more relevant to you at the time. For example, if you're checking your charge status frequently, it'll show you the trip data, and if you're having a check control message or something, it'll show you vehicle status. So have options there as well. System settings is pretty much exactly what you would think. These are all of our really basic settings like date and time, language. You can set up our personal assistant as well as customize it. You can adjust some of the data for your trip computer. Units, do we want kilowatt hours, miles per kilowatt hour versus kilometers, stuff like that. We want pound feet or newton meters, all those different unit adjustments. Sound allows us to adjust the sound of the Harman Kardon sound system. All of these pretty standard adjustments: bass, treble, balance, fader, all stuff that you would expect to see in a Harman Kardon equipped vehicle. Gesture control allows us to adjust and customize our gestures. So of course we do have gesture control that can adjust volume. We can mute and unmute the radio, all using our gestures. So if we wanted to change what different gestures do, we could go in here. Touchpad is in reference to our iDrive controller. So the top of the touchpad is, the top of the iDrive controller is a touchpad that we can write on for inputting a navigation destination. Pop-ups allows you to control what pop-ups, if any, you want to show up. So for example, when I do a gesture for gesture control, we see that little pop-up show up. If I didn't want that stuff to show up when I did the gesture, I could check that off here. Same goes for all these other different pop-ups. Notifications allows you to customize whether you want the BMW notifications to show up. So these are BMW notifications. If I don't want to be getting notifications for certain things, I can customize that. Getting started helps you set up your iX when you first get it. It'll run you through all the really basic stuff. Remote software upgrade obviously allows you to upgrade the software. You have some other settings like for valet parking mode. You can turn the car on do not disturb. You can hide private information or notifications or something, so those certain things will only be shown to the driver in case you have a passenger in the car. You have some more settings for your wireless charging tray. Data privacy adjusts how you want the car to send and receive data. You could reset vehicle data if you wanted to do a hard reset back to factory settings, which you obviously don't want to do if you've gotten everything set up how you want unless you have a problem. We can update our apps and services. We have some regulatory notes as well, just kind of legal stuff that nobody's really going to go into. So that is pretty much it for our system settings. We also have some more settings for things like interior lighting in here. We have settings for our digital key. We have settings for our displays and our doors and windows. So all of these things are going to be found under apps. Like I said, it is pretty much a substitution for the car menu from iDrive 7. And if you want to condense this, so let's say you want to adjust your interior lighting, but you don't want to have to scroll through Spotify and FM radio and all that stuff that's kind of irrelevant for adjusting settings. That's what this over here on the left, vehicle apps, is for. So this is only showing you car settings for adjustment. So it's nice that they help to condense like that. Or you can, of course, search the menu. You could just search interior lighting and it pops right up. So let's go keep going through some of these different settings. So we talked about interior lighting. This is, of course, all of our ambient lighting controls. You have the color, the brightness, stuff like that. BMW Shop is where you can buy certain services. So, for example, I think this car didn't come with traffic camera information. If you wanted to access that, You could through the BMW Shop. BMW Assistance is like your SOS button. Click on that if you need some roadside assistance. I'm actually going to back out of that because I don't want it to take forever to load. There you go. You can call assistance. Owner's manual is actually really, really helpful. iDrive 7 equipped cars have this too. It's even better in iDrive 8, of course. But you can, so let's say you stumble upon a menu item that you're not familiar with. You can go in here and search whatever it is that you want. Active cruise control, there you go. So the onboard owner's manual digitally is super helpful. Automate habits allows you, or disallows or allows the car, depending on your preference, to kind of track information about you, and it'll help to make predictions about your habits as far as like where you go frequently, for navigation predictions, stuff like that. BMW messages, like I said, is just this notification list up here. Digital key allows you to set up as well as remove or add keys if you wanted to, so that's your key card, your phone if you want to use the My BMW app. Drive recorder is the built-in dash cam that this car comes with. Yeah, I don't believe it's set up here, but if you wanted to, you could set up your drive recorder. You have the interior camera as well. So if we click on this, it loads the interior camera, and you'll see in a second a top-down view of the interior. You can take a picture. You can have it set to take a picture when you smile at the camera. You can do a self-timer. You can take a burst of pictures, all that kind of stuff. So the interior camera is definitely a fun one to play with. Messages, if you have a phone that is capable of sending text messages through the car, you could set that up here. ParkMobile is an app that allows you to pay for parking via the car if you're in a ParkMobile equipped parking garage. Personal Hotspot is that eSIM that we talked about, so you can turn your car into a mobile device effectively. If we click on Ronnie's iPhone, that's my phone that's connected. It'll take me to my media that's being played. Service Center is just service information. We don't really need to go through that. Climate control jumps us to our climate menu. Same exact thing as pressing this climate menu button down here. Displays is another setting menu. This will allow us to customize the heads-up display as far as the height, the rotation, brightness, stuff like that. Instrument cluster, similar thing, except for the instrument cluster or the gauge cluster, so we can convert the speed to kilometers if we wanted to. How do we want our speed limit assistant configured? We can adjust some of the time period data for the trip computer, all in the instrument cluster menu. Control display refers to this center screen, so all you can really do here is adjust the brightness. Doors and windows allows you to customize how the locks work, how you want the theft alarm to work, stuff like that. You have comfort access settings. Do you want the car to lock or unlock when you approach and walk away? We can set up our digital key. We can adjust like the height of our tailgate opening and stuff like that. So all your standard doors and vehicle access settings from iDrive 7 are mostly carried over here to iDrive 8. Driving settings is all of our settings related to the safety features. We have a couple other things as far as the drivetrain. Iconic sounds is of course that noise that the car makes through the speakers when you accelerate. Drive off support is for driving off in mud or snow. If you're stuck, the car will use its traction control system to kind of help you get out. And then we have some more charging settings as well. This is that same charging menu that we went through before. Finally, you have exterior lighting. You can adjust how the outside lights work. Do you want to manually turn on your low beams, parking lights, stuff like that? So we don't really have many hard controls for the headlights anymore. So a lot of those settings are in here. Then we have some more settings for like our automatic high beams. Do we want the turn signal to blink once or 3 times when we click it lightly? All those different settings. Finally, we have parking. So this just pulls up our parking menu. We can see this again by pressing the parking sensor button down in the center console, or you can go through the camera here, or the menu here to access it as well. All right, so that was the menu section. That is, of course, the most in-depth and detailed, long portion of this video. So we'll go through these last 3 tabs pretty quickly. So media is pretty straightforward. You can go in here to adjust what kind of music and entertainment you're using. If we go to audio source, it brings up this menu. We can access Spotify, our presets, Sirius or FM radio, the Bluetooth device, or news and podcasts. We can go to mobile devices to connect the device, or you can tap on media radio settings to get some options as far as menu personalization, the sound settings for the sound system. We can also, so right now we're scrolling through a playlist on my phone because my phone is connected, or we can click search. We can search. This is again all looking through the media that's downloaded onto my phone. So we can go by genre, we can go by artist, we can go by different playlist, albums, stuff like that. You can also search by name. So if you wanted to play a specific song or listen to a specific album, you can do that. Artists, again, just brings up a list of artists that are on the phone that's connected. Same thing with albums. So that's pretty much it for media. Let's go through telephone. So this is all your phone information. We can go up to recent calls, contacts, and then again access our mobile device menu. So all pretty straightforward stuff. You can also dial a number or access messages if you have a phone that is so equipped. All right, so at the bottom here we have navigation. So this is obviously going to access your navigation system. So you can pop this up and just leave the map if that's all you wanted to see, or you have some options as far as destination input as well. So we can go in here and search a destination by name, or we can access some of these pre-filled destinations like a charging station, look for parking, look for rest areas, service centers, stuff like that. So there are a couple different ways to input a destination even besides just clicking search. Another would be through your voice control. So you can press that voice control button on the steering wheel and just say the destination that you want to go to, just the address, and it'll take you right there. I think that's a lot easier than going in here. And even if you had an address in mind, it's much quicker to just say it out loud than go in here and type in the address, even though it does pick it up pretty well. So I typed in 111 Ridgedale Ave. It knows where I want to go, but it is, of course, a little easier to just talk to the car. You can also go through recent destinations. So every place that we've navigated to before will show up under recent destinations. And then you have my destinations. You can save some favorites. You can save a work or home address. You can also send future destinations from the My BMW app as well. If we go back to map over here, we have some couple options, a few options over here on the right. Do we want the navigation to speak to us or not? We can check that on and off. We can have navigation suggestions, so the car can suggest when it thinks a good time to charge is or a good place to stop. You can also change how you want the map to look. So do you want it to zoom in automatically or manually? And then you have some options as far as traffic information. And then we have even further map settings as far as like preferences. Do you want to avoid tolls or avoid highways? Stuff like that. How do we want the guidance to be delivered to us, whether on the screen in the gauge cluster, heads-up display, spoken, or otherwise. We can go into our augmented view, which is pretty neat, so we can get some AR features as far as the map goes, which is pretty useful. It'll actually show you arrows on the screen, like in real time, for where you want to turn for your navigation, so we can toggle that on and off. It'll do a similar thing for parking, like the little parking icon will show up over parking spots. Super helpful. So those are our navigation settings. And finally, I want to talk about climate control. That's the one thing we kind of haven't really touched on. So as many of you probably know, there are no longer hard buttons for the climate control. It's all integrated into the screen. And at first assessment, that can be a little bit cumbersome, but BMW actually did a really fantastic job of integrating the climate controls because they chose to leave this bar down here at the bottom of the screen affixed to the screen permanently. So your temperature adjustment and your climate menu button will never change no matter where you are in the settings. You can go through map and go run around all throughout the screen. This climate menu button will never go away. So you can always click climate menu and really easily adjust the fan speed or your seat controls. All of your different climate things are right here. You can turn on and off your automatic climate control up here in the top left for driver and passenger. You have a max AC button. You can sync the two climate zones. And then from left to right, we have heated seat, heated steering wheel, radiant heat, heated seat, ventilated seat, fan speed, and then the direction of the airflow. Then we have similar things repeated over there on the passenger side. Another neat thing that BMW chose to do is, now that I have my ventilated seat on, I can just tap right here, and again, it jumps us over to the climate menu. So it has a nice display down here at the bottom of the screen to make the fully screen integrated climate controls a little bit more seamless to use. And of course, you always have the option of voice control. So instead of even bothering pressing climate menu and turning down the fan speed or adjusting the temperature, I can just press my voice control button, or I could say, hey BMW, or hello BMW, turn down climate control or adjust fan speed or turn on my heated seat. All of those commands work for your climate control, so you don't even really have to mess around with the screen. Anyway, you also have some functions over here on the left for your recirculation, your auto programs. Do we want the climate control to be on or off completely? We can go through settings and adjust some more things as far as the temperature control for these two main front vents, adjust the distribution of our heated seats. We can do the same thing for the front passenger. We can adjust some rear climate controls. And then, of course, we have our preconditioning as well. All right, so that's going to do it for this walkthrough and tour of BMW's latest operating system, iDrive 8. I know that was a long one, super technical, so if you made it to this point in the video, thank you for watching. I hope that gave you guys an idea of kind of what it's like to play around with iDrive 8 yourself. And of course, if you're local to us and interested in purchasing an iDrive 8 equipped vehicle, you can come check it out yourself. If you visit us at 111 Ridgedale Ave, you can also give us a call at 973-455-0700. If you want to spec out an iX or any other BMW, we'll set you up with a client advisor and get you hooked up with a new car as quickly as possible. So thank you guys again for watching. Please give us a follow on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at BMW of Morristown, and we'll see you guys in the next one.